Good evening, treasure seekers. This is Blake coming to you live from New Mexico, and joining me as always from Washington State, it's Britt and Cody. How's it going, guys?
Good evening. Doing well, doing well. I don't know if I have too many updates. I did have one treasure hunting thought this evening that could be worth sharing. I
Okay.
was kind of frustrated that I don't have like more time. I just feel like if there's only more time, right? I'm sure everybody thinks that. Like I could solve this if I just had the more time. But then I realized like when I have light bulb moments, it's when I'm not even working on the Pokemon box.
Hmm.
So, or any box. So let that be a boost to your morale if you're getting down on not having enough time. Obviously, you need the time to like take in all the information, but maybe you'll have that light bulb moment when you least expect it.
That's great advice. Thank you, Bryn. Cody, how
That's not
are
really
you?
banter, but that's all I have to add.
Cody, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Nice.
Doing good.
I am
I
about.
was uh I was making fun of Bryn earlier because she does a lot of texting about the Pokemon box to Blake and I, and we're kind of slow responders at times. So she tries to get our attention, and it's slowly ramped up over
Can
the
I
weeks.
clarify? I need to clarify that it's not necessarily slow responders. Like you guys just won't read it.
I'll read it.
I'll read it.
I don't respond sometimes after I read it. Anyway, the moral of the story is the takeaway, the punchline is that they've slowly ramped up with like opening statements over the weeks. It started like, hey, you guys need to read this. And then like the little red exclamation point emojis and then the little like alarm bell emojis. And the most recent one I got this week was just all caps must read.
Okay, but in my defense, I've been sending fewer texts that are higher quality solve.
You have. It's
The
Yes.
just
one that
funny
I
how it's
labeled
funny how the urgency
miss,
just ramps up.
it didn't ramp up. I just had very good things to say. The must read connected like two floating clue bubbles in a way that I would tend to like. I think there was a for sure solve in there.
Excellent, excellent. I think I
And
just
if
need like I need a cheat sheet of all the different levels of urgency to know which ones I need to
I
respond
used
to
to
in which order.
I used to only use the alarm bell if it was something like really good. The must read is like
The must read
you,
trumps the alarm bell emoji.
I guess the must read was a must read because I think it is critical to the trajectory of the solve.
All right. That's a good point. I did not take into account the escalation of the emojis here, but now that you mention it, it's true. Very true.
But you have to say though, I've been sending
Few,
less
fewer
clutter.
high quality texts, though. Yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
agree. I
and
agree
all
with
very
that.
good stuff.
Anyway, hopefully we'll have Pokemon Summit soon, and so we can get through all of these clues and go back through my phone and see the texts.
I'm really excited because Blake's coming to visit soon, and I've proposed an all-day Pokemon Summit because I think if we can get the three of us in a room together, distraction-free, put our brains to this task, I think we can make some very good progress.
I agree. Yes, my 2 week vacation is starting, so I have time to do treasure hunting. Hooray!
Yes.
All right, should we dive into content for today? Horseshoes and hand grenades? Cody, you have horseshoes and hand grenades today.
I do. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint presentation in a moment here.
Okay.
I think I alluded to this in the last episode. It's a Forrest Fenn box solve, which I just have not been that interested in, but I was doing some other horseshoes and hand grenade stuff regarding Forrest Fenn, taking some different approaches, just kind of wanted to try something new. And I got, in hindsight, and I know this doesn't sound like me, I'm normally like the skeptical one of the bunch, but I think I got pretty sucked into it. I'm pretty excited. And I called Bryn a couple times and was all giddy about the potential solve.
Oh,
Um,
guess who picked up the phone and responded when you were excited? I did.
yes, it was a must hear.
Yeah.
And you didn't even give us any information. You didn't even say what box it was in.
I wouldn't. I was too excited. I thought I was so certain it was right. I wanted to do a big reveal all at once. Uh, in hindsight, and we'll talk about it later in the episode, but I think there's a handful of reasons, and now some pretty glaring reasons why we don't think this is right. But let the record show, I was going to show this on the podcast and reveal it anyway, even when I thought it was right. So
Okay.
I'm not just revealing it because I think it's wrong now. I was really excited to see what other people thought of it and if they could expand upon it, because it felt like there were a lot of pieces there to me. So I'm excited to talk through it, and I'm going to figure out here. Bear with me for probably a few seconds while I figure out how to share my screen. Open this over here, and I'm going to minimize this.
I will say the fact that Cody was so convinced and excited about it, like I was feeling like I don't even need to hear the solve. Let's go. Let's pack. Let's get going. Because we all know that Cody is quite skeptical.
Yes, and now I've lost all my credibility by getting overexcited about the Forrest Fenn box. But I did think it was good, and I'm excited to hear some people's feedback when they hear about it and see if they think it was good. Because I've read some Forrest Fenn solves. I think one of the reasons I was really excited about it is because I felt like a lot of the Forrest Fenn solves that I've read online were missing like really significant pieces, and like there were a lot that made like some good connections to like 2 or 3 parts of the poem, but there wasn't a lot I was seeing that were like convincing in every one of the connections to like the main connections I think are obvious that you need to make. Which made me really excited because I thought that this had like a lot of connections that weren't like I wasn't reaching for them, or at least it didn't feel like I was. So maybe people have like other theories they're just not sharing that do make a lot of connections, and mine's not special or unique. And I just was unaware of them, but we'll see. So I'll talk you through my Forrest Fenn box solve that I was previously excited about. This is my title screen with a fox.
I still don't understand the fox.
It was what PowerPoint auto generated when I typed in whatever it was, Forrest Fenn box. I think it's mostly the forest keyword.
Forrest Fenn box.
Yeah.
You can just replace box with F for Forrest Fenn and make fox.
Yes, exactly. You say, "Oh wait, Bryn."
Because Blake, when you're driving somewhere with someone and they were like, "Oh, wasn't there something like a fen could be, or a forest fen?" But that was like a swamp.
A fen, yeah, is like a wetlands next to a forest.
Yeah, when I said, "Oh wait," I thought it was something to do with the fox for a second, but
no,
carry on.
It was the definition of fen. Yes. All right, go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, this could take a minute, so I want to jump into it here. All right, some initial notes that just kind of cover some initial thoughts I had when I was that I wanted to remember to talk about when I put together this PowerPoint. One is that I felt like this solve kind of just passes the feel test of just like in an area that kind of just felt right. Mostly like an area that geographically was interesting, and then also felt like it was kind of split the difference between kind of a populated area, but then you're kind of removing yourself from a populated area and getting somewhere where you could like hide treasure realistically without someone stumbling upon it. Stuff like that kind of just felt good to me. It had like a good number of features around it. I like that it seemed to also fit with the Forrest Fenn poem, because we were working under the assumption, I don't know if we're still calling it an assumption or if it's a fact at this point, that JCB hid his box somewhere where he had somewhere where he had searched for Forrest Fenn's treasure. So on some level, our solve for the JCB box kind of also needs to fit in some ways with the Forrest Fenn poem. And I felt like this did that. And then the biggest thing that I really liked is that it felt like this was one of my few horseshoes and hand grenades that didn't have any of what I'm calling like disqualifiers. Like I'm big on saying, oh, but yes, I need connections to part one to make this part two work. And then stuff like, yeah, I'm stretching the rules of 3 miles, or it's an area that's too dangerous. This one like didn't have any of those, which I was really excited about. It felt like it was just like a straight up answer without any buts or any ors or anything like that. So during the PowerPoint, I'm going to take most of the poem kind of line by line and explain my thought process and why I was excited by it. So the first line, I cruise along a road I know and park my car just off the side. So this potential solve starts just off Grand Loop Road, and this is a Yellowstone solve. It's a 142-mile paved road forming a figure 8 shape and connects major attractions, which feels very like road I know-ish. Would also be, given that it's in Yellowstone, it connects Yellowstone attractions. So it would also definitely be like an area where people would be traversing when looking for the Forrest Fenn treasure. And then the parking and trailheads for a couple of different potential trails I was looking at are just right off that main road. So that fits kind of the criteria of, and parked my car just off the side. Near where I'd searched for heavy loads, it was not there, although I tried, like I just referenced. Kind of needs to be near, we're assuming it needs to be near where someone would have looked for the Forrest Fenn treasure. So I pulled up a map here. I was not super involved in the Forrest Fenn treasure, but it seems as though kind of the leading theory, I want to be careful how I phrase this so I don't upset Forrest Fenn people. I think the leading theory was that it was at 9 Mile Hole, which I've marked on this map of Wyoming. So if you consider that it could be in any one of the kind of main 4 states, or some people might think just near those 4 states, you consider all that area, and then the area that I was looking at is this close, as you can see on the picture, to 9 Mile Hole, which is a tiny little fraction of Wyoming. It feels like it's kind of in an area where people would have been looking for the Forrest Fenn treasure, given that it's so close to where the treasure may have been found. The beginning where cool waters flow, beginning where cool water flows, that one's pretty straightforward. It's right off the Yellowstone River. So I think that's, there's a couple of different trailheads there that are right at the Yellowstone River. Feels like that would be kind of on the nose, beginning where cool water flows, and follow through the canyon round. So this area that I was looking at is called Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. So it's very clearly a canyon. I also like the fact that it does kind of round in the area that we're looking at. So definitely feels like it fits both of those criteria. And the trail that I was most interested in actually kind of follows the lip of the canyon round. Kind of takes a 90-degree turn up there, or a radius. Take in the rolling highs and lows. I took that to mean potentially a couple of different things. One is there's somewhat undulating terrain on the trail itself, but it's also you're going right past these waterfalls. So there's the lower falls and the upper falls. Kind of, I think rolling can also be an adjective that's associated with like rolling water or waterfalls. So it feels like that could have 2 different meanings that could possibly fit there, with undulating terrain or taking in the kind of the rolling waters, highs and lows, top of a waterfall, bottom of a waterfall, high and low. Pass by a place where once was brown. So this one, when I originally pitched it to Blake and Bryn, my take was that that the lower falls was my place where once was brown, because it was famously painted by Grafton Tyler Brown, who was the first African-American artist to create works depicting the Pacific Northwest in California. And he painted this fairly prominent or famous painting called View of the Lower Falls, Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone in 1890. When I brought this up and I had tied it to the Lower Falls, which is kind of in the title of the artwork, Blake brought up that there's actually a nearby area called Artist's Point, which seems like that's where artists actually like were when they painted this scene. So I could be wrong there in thinking, I was thinking that the Lower Falls itself is the place where once was brown, but really the artist point where he actually physically would have been while painting Lower Falls probably makes more sense. And if I back up a slide, nope, back up 2 slides. Yeah, you can see artist point in the upper right-hand corner. So it's a little bit further than the Lower Falls itself along the trail there.
But when we
kind of another...
when we compared the artwork from Grafton Tyler Brown to the picture from Artist Point, that's multiple pictures that are available on Google Maps. We think that is the place likely where this painting was made. Is that correct, Cody?
Yeah, that's correct. We looked at both of those, and it lines up pretty clearly that that's where he would have been stationed while painting this. From here, you are more on your own. The path is always drawing nigh. So up to this point, you can see my green dashed line of kind of the trail I had been following at this point. I also circled kind of the main parking lot areas, and there's just kind of generally a lot of touristy areas around this area of the canyon. So if we continue following that trail, this is where you kind of now start moving away from the very populated touristy areas and more towards an area where you're going to be kind of on your own. So again, I feel like that's pretty just spot on with the language of the poem there. Then we get to the compass points now towards the home of point and tree and seeing eye. I initially felt really good about this one and have since calmed down a little bit, particularly on the tree part. So my thought process there, I think most people are thinking the same thing, that the compass points now means that it's basically these landmarks are directly north of you at this point, kind of in your journey. So directly north of where you'd be standing, you can see continuing my green dashed line there. Directly north of that would be Lookout Point. So the lookout was my seeing eye. The point was my point. And then this is a file that had been used a handful of times on Wikipedia that was titled Walking Tree at Lookout Point at Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, which is basically just a picture of a tree ultimately. And that's why I ended up kind of calming down on it a little bit. But it just felt very on the nose when I had pulled it up for it to be the prominently used, somewhat prominently used titled photo in Wikipedia on a few different pages. It's called Walking Tree at Lookout Point. Just feels like that one feature kind of hit all those different keywords in the poem. I do want to make a quick tangent because I don't think I told you guys I was going to talk about this, but it's a point. One of the points that I was originally going to talk about. Maybe I'll save it, actually. Never mind. I'm going to talk about something related to this in a future episode, I think, but it's going to go too long if I go off on a tangent right now. So I'm just going to continue. Stop just beyond the camper's blaze. I would have liked to have found campsite a little bit earlier on in the on that trail, and we weren't able to go boots on the ground, and now we're definitely not. We'll talk about that later. But still within 3 miles, I did find reference to campsites up by this lake. I'm trying to remember what that lake is. We'll talk about it in a second. But in one of the kind of blog posts about this hike that I've highlighted, they said there is a sign for a primitive campsite that says some letters and numbers, and some people use this area for an easy overnight hike. And I really liked that description because it felt pretty much exactly what I'd expect the camper's blaze to be. I don't think it would be someplace too prominent or like a campground. By the time you get to this point in the poem, it feels like you have to be kind of removed from like a mainstream campground. It's the idea of like a documented campsite area that's got some features, but is starting to like definitely be kind of more backwoodsy. I really like that description, and it felt kind of apt and appropriate for matching up with the poem. So I was still pretty on board at this point. A thinker stone is all you need. We discussed thinker stone extensively in the last episode because I was still really excited about this, and I wanted to pick your guys' brains on coming up with a solution because I didn't really have one. What I had at this point was that you end up getting kind of near where I expected my final area to be is Silver Cord Cascade. And Silver Cord Cascade is considered the tallest waterfall in Yellowstone, which is another reason why I liked this area for matching the Forrest Fenn poem because of references to like highs and stuff. I felt like being high up um, kind of matched up really well. But the reason I liked it for the Thinker Stone is just the reference to silver, which admittedly is a pretty loose reference. I was trying to find some way to make the Thinker Stone. We talked in last week's episode about how a philosopher's stone turns base metals into silver and gold. So just the word silver, maybe there's something in there. But I didn't feel great about that. And then when I talked with Blake and Bryn about it, Bryn brought up that she thought potentially like the word Yellowstone itself and being close to Yellowstone River, there could potentially be a connection somewhere there, but did not have a connection to Thinker Stone that I felt really good about, which is why I wanted to talk about it a lot more in last week's episode. And I kind of settled on that's going to get to the point where you have to be kind of more boots on the ground. Then the spot is set with Marvel Gaze. That's just a screenshot of kind of like a Google Maps drop. You drop the little guy on Google Maps and it shows you the surroundings. So it definitely felt very in line with Marvel Gaze. And it's ultimately why I was kind of hoping that the idea of Thinker Stone and Marvel Gaze would be like a stone that was similar to the one from the Thinker statue, like we had talked about. Mm-hmm. And you use that to sit on, and it's kind of on the lip of the canyon here, and then you look out at that scene, and that's kind of your Marvel Gaze. So that was kind of why I was like, oh, I kind of want to go boots on the ground and check this out. Originally, when I found it, because I thought it might be a boots on the ground thing. A white mark shows upon the seat. So I originally had this chalked up when I pitched it to Blake and Brent. Totally had it chalked up to a boots on the ground thing. Kind of could have gone with what I was talking about with the Thinker's Stone. You'd physically sit on that. Maybe there was a white mark on that. And that would kind of further differentiate that stone from other stones nearby. But then Blake found something that I've highlighted here that was like really, really cool, I thought.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure geographically. I mean, it's obviously like a couple hundred feet, a couple hundred yards from where we are, but it doesn't really fit with like the sequence in the poem, but it just seemed like too much of a coincidence not to be involved in some way. So when we were looking for a white mark that shows upon the seat, Blake found that the trail just south of the trail that I had highlighted is called Wapiti Lake Trailhead. And Wapiti means elk. And the name Wapiti, as I've highlighted here, is derived from a Shawnee and Cree word meaning white rump. So that obviously felt exciting to me.
Solved. It was super exciting, yeah.
And it was also how quickly you found it was very much in line with like how quickly I found all of my solves up to this point, which is why I was feeling so good about this. Because Bryn had previously talked kind of conceptually about, hey, when we find a treasure box, basically she was saying that in hindsight, it's going to feel obvious, right, Bryn? Something like that. I'm probably not phrasing it perfectly.
That I think a correct solve, like when you have the solve, it's going to feel very obvious that is what is correct.
Yeah. And I think I was kind of getting that feeling with this one as I was putting it together, which is why I was getting so excited, because it just felt like everything I was looking into was just perfectly lining up with something in the poem without having to try. And I didn't even find this Wapiti thing. And then as soon as when I put this original PowerPoint together to show Blake and Bryn, it was like Blake found it in like 2 minutes. And it was just like, it just felt like they were all falling into place like so easily without having to force anything. So yeah, I was getting really excited about it. And then near here, it's nestled all in dream. Ever since I first read the poem, I had pictured something about the word nestled made me feel like he's referencing the treasure box being like literally like nestled in a plant. Um, and so I months ago when we first talked about this, I think I had brought it up that I kind of got fixated early on with the idea of it being nestled in a plant called Indian Dream, which was one of like um, the main plants that I could find that had the word dream as part of its name or a reference to it, that was in that area. And it's actually this part of the solve is what got me to that area in the first place, because the overlap of the area where you can find Indian Dream and those four states is actually pretty minimal. It's just the west part of Wyoming and the west part of Montana, according to this one map I had found. So that's what got me looking in the area in the first place, is the nestled all in dream clue. And then kind of closing out the rest of it, we got the rest of the poem, the other kind of highlighted terms that I'd be looking for, the golden bending stream. When I originally put the PowerPoint together, I was thinking that a lot of this stuff would end up being boots on the ground at this point, but possibly a reference to Yellowstone River again with golden bending stream, yellow and gold. Your efforts will be worth the high. At this point would be located like right next to the tallest waterfall in Yellowstone, which felt, pretty spot on with the worth the high part. And then if you can mark warm waters halt, there's a handful of geothermic features in the area. So I thought maybe the geothermic stuff, something to do with like a cutoff area where you kind of transition from warm water to cold water. I was also looking into, it sounds like it's kind of known that there's temperature differences between the top of waterfalls and the bottom of waterfalls. So I was looking into that a little bit. Yeah. Then I got a few other things I just wanted to touch on real quick. This is from another blog post about hiking the trail, Clear Lake Artist Point Loop Trail. That's the trail that I had been highlighting. And they reference that there's basically like these geothermic pools that will actually like bubble up on the path itself. And the ones that they had referenced in their post online were cool. But I also have to imagine that there were some warm ones too, since it's like a geothermic feature. So I thought that that could be like a really cool and interesting way of like transitioning from warm waters that are like safe and easy to like stick your fingers in and test, transitioning from warm waters to cool waters along that trail that we were looking at. So I was pretty excited about that. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, because at this point I was thinking like, oh, this has got to be the area. And it kind of just felt like a little confirmer when I read this, that Silver Cord Falls, the tallest waterfall in Yellowstone, kind of near where you end up, was originally named Silver Thread Falls. And I felt like it would be very JCB-esque if there was like some sort of reference to thread, i.e., our unbreakable thread, near like each one of these boxes. And it would be like a little Easter egg where they're all connected with a thread. So I started kind of thinking about how that would be cool and very, like I said, very JCB-esque. If that were the case. And it also felt like if that were the case, it would be like just hidden well enough if like this waterfall previously had a name that had thread in it, versus I don't think he's going to like put them all next to something that like glaringly is named thread. That feels like it would be too much. So I got excited about that. And then I'm not going to talk about this much, but I was originally, when I was trying to make Thinker's Stone connections, I was looking at connections to Philosopher's Stone, and Philosopher's Stone was associated with different elements like mercury, sulfur, and salt. And there's obviously a lot of sulfur with the geothermic stuff in Yellowstone. So I was just trying to make other connections to Thinker's Stone. But I think after last week's episode, I actually like a lot of those connections better. So That ends my presentation.
Very good.
And as I
Excellent.
had, oh gosh, how do I get rid of this? Eh? As I mentioned, I think this is all going to be a moot point later on in this episode when we talk about reasons why this wouldn't work. Um, but as of a week and a half ago, I was pretty excited about this for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was an excellent solve. And I think we're all on board for maybe a boots on the ground trip out there to try to find the Thinker's Stone, particularly, and maybe a white mark upon a seat as well. I know you mentioned that as boots on the ground potentially, but the Wapiti Trail seemed to be a nice confirmer of that too. So anyway, I think maybe we'll rearrange the order of the episode and talk about why we think maybe this is a moot point sooner, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
In case anyone is as excited as I was.
Before, yeah, go ahead, Bryn.
Oh, I was just going to give my commentary on the solve. I do think it is a good solve. It's exciting as you go through it. I think my main hangups were that I think the most critical stanzas or lines were ones that we were just kind of saying, oh, this will maybe be boots on the ground. Like to not have a 100% solid for point tree scene I think that is something that would have to be critical to differentiate a trail from another trail or another location. And then for both Thinker's Stone and white mark upon the seat to say that's probably just boots on the ground as well. That made me really nervous because like between those three things, that feels the most specific to the correct location versus just matching like geographical features, I guess. So that was my initial feedback.
Yeah. And problem is I think there's a high probability that at least something in the poem is going to end up being a you won't know till your boots on the ground type thing. Because otherwise,
I agree.
There's going to have to be something that kind of narrows down your search area pretty substantially once you get there. That's likely probably not something you're going to see from like a Google Maps or something similar to that. So you may have to get more comfortable with the idea of if we come up with another solve where 85 or 90% of it feels really solid, we might just have to do some boots on the ground and not have kind of those final T's crossed and I's dotted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say even less than 85, 90%, like 60 to 90% solved. I think there's going to be a lot of boots on the ground clues associated with these things. So in my opinion, the bar should be a little bit lower. So, all right.
I have a very hard time with that.
Well, couple comments. So because this is the Forrest Fenn box, I was curious about the history of JCB's Forrest Fenn hunt. So I posted a question, or two questions actually, in the Discord, the Calazar's Discord. So my first question was, can you tell me a bit about the 9 Mile Hole location reveal timeline? Specifically, when did the 9 Mile Hole location as the quote-unquote official solve location become public knowledge? And the reason I wanted to know that was when you first showed that map, Cody, of 9 Mile Hole versus where your Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone solve location was, they seemed pretty close, right? And so I was curious about if JCB would have hidden the treasure so close to... I mean, it's still many miles away, but if he would have hidden his treasure, Forrest Fenn box, so close to that. And so then my second question was, does anyone know if Jon Collins-Black was ever a Yellowstone searcher? So I thought both of those pieces of information might be helpful in coming up with some sort of conclusion about whether or not we think your Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone solve was reasonable. K-Pro was the one responded. as an expert in the Forrest Fenn hunt. So thank you very much to KPro. KPro, obviously part of Calazar's channel. They do a bi-weekly podcast on various treasure hunts. KPro said May 2022 was when the stick and log were found. A month or two before 9 Mile Hole was confirmed, or whatever the right word is. So she's also cognizant of controversy surrounding 9 Mile Hole. So that's interesting, and I don't think that's actually entirely helpful for what what my thought process was, because we don't know exactly when Jon Collins-Black hid each of these treasures. So if you would have picked out his location in 2021 or 2022 and then gotten the news that 9 Mile Hole was the location allegedly of the Forrest Fenn box, would he have still kept that location? I don't know. I think that remains unknown whether or not we can make a conclusion from that. Regarding whether or not JCB was a Yellowstone searcher, she said, rumors only, but have been told Colorado and Wyoming, Montana was his search area, but not inside the park, meaning Yellowstone Park. Again, no confirmation, just rumor. So that's the information that we've received so far about whether or not JCB even was a Yellowstone searcher to begin with, because again, we're under the assumption at this point that this is one of the locations that JCB was searching for Forrest Fenn's original treasure, is probably where he hid the Forrest Fenn box, because he would be intimately aware of the places that he searched and why he came up with those search areas based on the Forrest Fenn poem. So yeah, a little bit inconclusive there, but I think it's helpful nonetheless to discuss that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some breaking news. Combination with a Discord detective. All right, so there was just recently, in the past couple days, a post on Discord where Just Dave posted a podcast link to a show called Sidebar by Courthouse News. And there was a recent interview with Jon Collins-Black on the podcast Sidebar with Courthouse News. And we'll have a link, obviously, to that podcast down below in the show notes. I'm a little nervous to play the sound clip by a show seemingly about legal issues, but we're going to try it anyway. So this is a poll from this podcast, Sidebar by Courthouse News, where they were interviewing Jon Collins-Black. It's not really a traditional interview, I'd say. They kind of cut and paste certain sound bites from Jon Collins-Black. It's not long form by any means, but there's probably 2 to 3 minutes worth of Jon Collins-Black talking overall in this entire podcast episode. But here's the clip, and I want your guys' reaction, because I don't think you guys have heard it yet.
So I have a box called the Forrest Fenn box. It's an ode to his, and it has some of the items of his treasure in my box. I hid the treasure on some place I was searching that I thought would be a great spot. So you can rule out Yellowstone.
So it says, so you can rule out Yellowstone. And that's in conjunction with the Forrest Fenn box. So suddenly, something we were very excited about, which was your solve, Cody, it seems like there's some counteracting information that has just been revealed that argues against that. Any initial thoughts? And I have thoughts as well.
Yeah, I have initial thoughts. I think if you just got to scrap it, I mean, it seems like he said it pretty definitively. There wasn't a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think it's not in Yellowstone. That's what he said. I can see through this process, I can see how people get like really attached to their solves and like don't want to hear certain things and just want to be like, yeah. I mean, in this case, it'd be like, yeah, JCB said that, but he could have meant a lot of things by it. And I'm going to kind of logic my way around that and hang on to what I've got. Mm-hmm. And I've got the advantage of like, this came to me all very quickly. And then I lost it all very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
like over the course of a week. So I
Yeah.
didn't build like too many ties to it emotionally. But I can definitely see how if like someone's formulating a solve around an area for like months and months, how you get to the point where you're just like, I don't care if JCB himself tells me no. It's just got to be here. I've just invested so much into it. So it's an interesting little glimpse into that world for me. Um, but ultimately, I mean, yeah, I'm willing to say I'm not right. I think it's pretty definitive. And then I have other comments about that, how JCB handled that uh, itself. But I'll let you guys talk a little bit before I bring that up.
Okay. Bryn,
I think
yeah.
it was pretty wild that he threw that out there. I mean, he says like everything you need's in the book, but it feels like now he's kind of maybe for the first time provided a hard fact on a solve location outside of the book through this content. I guess the only thing I could think of is like, is it known that he never searched in Yellowstone? Like, it doesn't sound like that's known, but I would have to think like maybe that's kind of his logic behind it. I don't know. It just felt very strange that he's creating a large area that is now off limits outside of the book itself.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before we started filming here, and I said to you guys, it's so weird because it feels like we've talked about how he's been so cautious with his choice of words in interviews. He made it clear that he doesn't want to like he wants the book to stand alone. He doesn't want to do like the coy Forrest Fenn thing where he kind of drops little hints. Um, and it's just yeah, I mean he's even like it seems like he had premeditated descriptions of certain things. He got like to that level of wanting to make sure that he said what he wanted to say and not anything extra. And then to drop this kind of bombshell, and also, I mean that's part of it. And then the other part is like if you're going to say that, it feels almost like that's big enough news that it should go through like his social media or something, not through like a podcast that I'm sure a lot of people just would could have missed, would have missed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure obviously it's going to probably permeate the message boards now at this point. But yeah, I'm surprised it's just kind of just, oh, by the way,
not in Yellowstone. Yeah, I'm gonna comment a little bit about this. I recommend that you guys both check out and listen to the full podcast. Just as a hint, the JCB stuff is pretty close to the front of the podcast episode. It's about 35 minutes or so. And then it really diverges into different topic areas about public lands and things like that. And then at the very end, it does come back to a little bit of JCB talk. So hang in there and listen to the full thing because JCB does come back at the end for a little bit of chatter. What
related to the Yellowstone topic?
Not related to Yellowstone. But if you like listen to the first 10 minutes and you're like, oh, well, JCB is not coming back in this episode, he is. Just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Don't give up on it. But yeah, less important information. Pay attention to the editing of this podcast because certainly it's heavily edited. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a match back in, and I'm doing exactly what you're saying not to do, Cody, which is like maybe we can poke holes in this a little bit, unfortunately, but it's heavily edited. You can tell the jump cuts that are happening between the words even Jon Collins-Black is saying. So pay attention to that, anybody that's listening to this podcast. And even you can hear the jump cut, in my opinion, right before he says, so Yellowstone's out. So just as a small percentage chance, this is out of context. Let's listen to it one more time.
So I have a box called the Forrest Fenn box. It's an ode to his, and it has some of the items of his treasure in my box. I hid the treasure on some place I was searching that I thought would be a great spot. So you can rule out Yellowstone.
So yeah, it's unclear there. It's more clear in other segments, the jump cuts that are being made and editing Jon's words together. So anyway, just keep that in mind. I do recommend you listen to it. I actually did not find this information on the Discord. It was sent via email from Dr. R Squared's reflecting on Treasure Inside, which is one of my favorite blogs slash substacks that I recommend to people. He was the one that I got the email notification about this. He called it an quote unquote annoying interview because of I think Dr. R Squared agreed that this seems like a huge major information drop that shouldn't be there. And he talks a little bit about the Appalachian Trail box as well in this episode. So there's more comment and more commentary by Dr. R Squared that I'd recommend you check out. Again, I'll post Dr. R Squared's Substack link below as well. But anyway, sorry to put just a little dash of doubt into this because of the editing methods that were used. And yeah, you'll notice, hopefully, since I pointed this out, the jump cuts that are happening from the Jon Collins-Black portion of the interview.
At the risk of making this episode run way too long, especially for this part of it, I have kind of a thought experiment that just popped into my head, and I really want your thoughts on. And I think I'm very interested to hear what you guys think about it. So we know that JCB's has been, it seems like very reluctant to both confirm or deny any specific piece of information. It's kind of been bouncing around. So let's assume that during this podcast, he said something kind of different than how it ended up. And that the podcast host or editor edited it in a way that kind of made it sound different than he meant to make it sound. Do you think that JCB then would try and clear the air in some way? Or do you think that he would just say, hey, the community's doing what the community does, whatever, I'm not getting involved. It's a slippery slope. They should know that words can be edited and that are obviously jump cuts in there.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I could see how on one hand he'd be like, whoa, I can't have that out there, that it makes it sound like I made a claim that I didn't. Right. But I can also see how he would think it's a slippery slope and just be like, hey, I knew stuff like this was going to happen. I'm not getting involved.
Yeah, I think the former. I think particularly if it's been edited in a way that he wasn't trying to message, I think he would try to clear the air. I don't think it would happen immediately. I think it would come up maybe during a future interview, for example. So, if somebody has the opportunity to interview JCB again, and they kind of do a Emma and Jam approach where they're asking very direct questions, I think this piece of information would come up. And at that point, I would hope he would clarify at either, yes, that statement was correct, it's not in Yellowstone, and that is true, or he would skirt around it maybe, and that might be indicative of that was edited differently. I don't know if he would actually come out and say that's not correct, because that might be too direct.
Yeah.
So it is, as you're saying, a slippery slope of how to correct this if it's wrong. I'm under the assumption that it's correct. I can't really put together how that sound clip would have come together if it's something like he was describing his search process, for example, and picking out his locations and then said something and then said it's not in Yellowstone. And somehow they edited that into the sound clip. Like, I could see that, but that would be a little bit odd that they would ethically do that. So
yeah,
the interviewers would do that. So anyway, I'm just saying there's a small chance based on the editing technique, but I'm not a strong believer of that.
What's your take, Bryn?
I can definitely see both sides, like you're saying. My gut says that he would correct it if it was just like truly a false statement. But I think we just need to go with the assumption that it's not in Yellowstone. We heard those words come out of his mouth, and I think if they edited something in a way to create that come out of his mouth that was not his intention, that's like insane. So I think we just need to take it as a fact.
Yeah, and for the record, My stance is I'm scrapping the whole idea. I don't think it's in Yellowstone. I'm taking that at face value. This is just a little bit of a thought experiment because it's something that could even happen again in future interviews if people get really into the old editing software. And then it suddenly becomes kind of hard to tell the context that he's saying things in. So, yeah, I was just interested in your take. I am not going to be someone who clings on to ideas and will not let go of them. That's like my whole thing is I'm willing to be wrong about everything.
All right. Cool. That's a long discussion, but I think worthy because it was a really cool solve. I was excited about it. We all were talking about driving out or booking tickets. So we were getting pretty close. So sorry to disappoint all of the fans that are anxious for us to go boots on the ground, which I know there are a few of them because I get emails about it, complaining that we haven't gone boots on the ground yet. So anyway, that's an integral part of treasure hunting. We need to do it. I think we were as close as we've been with this one, unfortunately, and now it's been shot down. So sadness.
Yeah. I think after Bryn's in-person Pokemon Summit, maybe we'll have enough at that point to go check.
Hopefully, we have a spot or two nailed down that we can go check out.
Yes, the box that is most assuredly the furthest from us.
All right, so a little bit out of order for our usual episode. Should we dive into mailbag, or do we have any other parting thoughts on this?
Mailbag.
We've got mail.
Bryn, you want to kick us off?
I'm going to start us off in the mailbag, and let's start with Ryan. So last week, if you listen to the podcast, we had brought up an image, I think that was originally brought up through the Calazar's channel, and it was shown that odd Scotty picture in chapter 1 that is very odd. If you were to shine a flashlight through the opposite side of that page, it kind of creates a literal red herring, with the Scotty image kind of becoming the fish scales and the eye. And I first of all want to say I was very skeptical last episode, and the more I think about it, the more I like it, because that Scotty picture is so weird. Like, why is it there? I remember from the very beginning, it's like, this Scotty picture does not make sense. So the red herring idea has grown on me. Anyways, Ryan wrote in that he thinks he also found another, like, literal, I guess it's not red, but he thinks he found another instance of a fish in the book. That would be a red herring. So if you want to pull up the picture, Blake.
Sure.
This is found in the past and future box word search. And I'm sorry, my cells are not perfectly square here, so it's not as like great as it should be, but you can kind of see if you highlight those red O's that are right in the middle of the word search, where you have the cross and then you have an additional O in the lower right-hand corner of the cross. It really can look like a fish, kind of pointing to the southeast, I guess, swimming towards the southeast of the word search. Mm-hmm. Of course, I colored these cells red for dramatic effect, but the thought here would be nobody's really found a great explanation for what these O's are, or if they should be part of a solve, or if they're to be omitted. And so his thought is that this is indicating that the O's would be a red herring and to disregard the O's. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I do kind of like it, only because it hasn't had a convincing solution for me yet. So yeah, just being able to discard it as a red herring is tempting, but I won't be doing it so soon. So if it were like we find it in every box, every part 2 box, let's say, and even the part 1 box because of the Scotty picture, the lion's share, I might be a little bit more convinced, because I do like the idea that for the Appalachian footpath box, the little red fish by the compass rose, as we talked about last episode, being a red herring, this being a red herring for the past and future box. Can we find an example of a red herring in the Forrest Fenn box and the Pokemon box, then I feel like maybe this has some legs. But yeah, I'm not buying it.
Maybe JCB saying that the Forrest Fenn box is not in Yellowstone is the red herring for that box.
I'm thinking, what if Seeking is our red herring in Pokemon box?
Okay.
It's a redfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we're stretching it, but
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
think that this was a clever fish here.
Yeah, awesome. I like it.
All right. Next mailbag is brought to us by Justin. So Justin was the one that brought the red herring to the community's attention. And he, I guess the idea there would be expanding upon the flashlight method as a viable solve option. So Justin sent us a picture that expands on the flashlight concept that I really liked. So if you want to pull up that picture, it was particularly exciting because it builds off of kind of the compass and bearing horseshoes and hand grenades I did last week, which maybe is not so much of a horseshoes and hand grenades as I'm learning, but if you were to shine a flashlight through the last page of part 1, the part 2, if you're shining a light through part 2 back onto the end of part 1, the red line that you get from the part 2 page highlights the line to varying degrees on the prior page.
Wow.
So I know we've talked a lot about how these different graphic elements, such as the lines, could be coming into play. And it's really interesting to think of this as opportunity to highlight specific words. And I know we have, those weird lines that we talked about mid-chapter earlier on. I mean, are those specifically there to call out words
Negative
on another
bearings.
page?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like this deserves, we need to take some time and do the flashlight approach, I think. See what other lines are getting highlighted or other parts of images are getting highlighted and just see if we can kind of build some momentum there. But I thought this was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I know we've got those random similar red lines in one of the early chapters. I can't remember off the top of my head which one, but they seemed like out of place and just like not used elsewhere in the book. So I'd definitely be interested to check out those ones and see if they do something similar.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess our typical strike against this would be, especially for the ebook readers here, if they don't have a part 2 and if they bought the lion's share, they would have no sense of part 2 box's title page being next to this page. So that's my only strike against this, but that is quite a coincidence if it's a coincidence. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I will be.
I guess my only counter argument to that is we have been told we don't need all the clues.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think
That's
that
basically what I was
we can
gonna
kind of
say.
keep that in our back pocket.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be very interested to see when we get a solution to something, if every single clue is ebook relevant, or if it's like maybe, or how many are possible in the ebook, but like much, much more difficult, like potentially something like this would be, or how many are just like obviously doable in the ebook. Because yeah, I know we've talked the whole ebook thing to death, I'm sure, but I still have a lot of thoughts on about it, and I'm still thinking about it quite frequently.
No, super cool.
Yeah. I think the reason I liked it so much is because I am a sucker for anything that's like using the book in a creative way. And so I mean, a flashlight is something certainly everybody has access to. And so I think that is a very fair creative use of the book in that bubble. So I liked that one.
And you could even go as far as to say that you could probably do something similar, like not as effectively, but still get the same output with like holding it up to the sun on a bright day or something. So it's even more
better.
even more just the book.
Yes. Agreed.
I like that.
All right. My third mailbag here is from Tile, and this is for the Forrest Fenn box. I loved the timing of this because we had been working on Cody solve for Forrest Fenn, and I really liked what they had to say about point, tree, and seeing eye. So it said, there's a riddle in the Forrest Fenn box poem that goes, the compass now points towards the home of point, tree, and seeing eye. So taking this as a riddle, we have seeing eye, dog, point. They say an action that a dog does, like kind of like a pointer dog, and tree, another action and breed of dog. My additional commentary note there was also like maybe we consider a dogwood tree. I don't know. But either way, you would then say the solution to this riddle is dog. You can answer each one of those parts of the poem with the answer dog. So if we say it's the home of point, tree, and seeing eye, it would be a doghouse. So they say, so the answer to these two lines in the poem is the compass now points to the doghouse. Think climbing routes / climbing areas that have unique and colorful names like the doghouse. So I particularly liked the idea of a climbing route or climbing area because of its emphasis on the hobnail box. And hobnails were traditionally, historically used for mountaineering on the bottom of boots. So it feels like with this emphasis on hobnail, maybe that's just organically the design that Seth Gould came up with, but his emphasis on hobnail and this here with doghouse as a climbing area or route, I liked those two connections. So what do you guys think about point, tree, and seeing eye being a little bit of a riddle in itself here?
In that email, they mentioned either like another example riddle or like a known riddle, right? And I think that really helped sell it for me.
Yeah, it's the riddle similar to this. Watch, sheep, seeing eye. You got a watchdog, a sheepdog, and a seeing eye dog. And I guess I don't know if that's like a well-known riddle or something like that. It sounds like it should be, but I have not confirmed that.
Yeah, I think when I read that in the email, it primed me to buy into the rest of it a little bit more. So I just wanted to touch on that. Yeah, I think it's this one for me is like right on the brink of my test of if this ends up being the answer, would I be satisfied with it? I think this is like teetering right on the brink of like, yeah, that's kind of clever versus yeah, that's kind of kind of really. That could be right in between the two for me.
I think it's sufficiently clever if you consider that he has to fit this in with the rest of the poem as a solve. Like there's a lot of things you got to be checking off here to make the poem work as a whole. And so I think that would be clever. I personally would be satisfied with that.
Blake, tiebreak.
I kind of like it as well. I mean, I like the cleverness of using the three words, especially with seeing eye as being maybe the more prominent one to lead you down that path. I wouldn't be upset if that were part of the solution. I think it's clever.
I think I'd need more background information on the tree part.
Yeah,
I could buy into the seeing
tree
eye.
dog. I don't know anything about.
Buy into the point. I'm definitely taking their word on that it's a breed or an action for the tree. And I feel like there would just be like a more concise, better fit word that would fit dog and also something kind of natural.
The tree dog is a type of hunting dog, typically a coonhound that is trained to chase game animals such as raccoons or squirrels up a tree.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm being swayed.
could be. That's right. I think that was what I was most maybe hesitant on as well, just being unfamiliar. And so that's where I kind of thought, well, maybe it's also a dogwood. Would be the idea, a type of tree called the dog. So overall, I like that approach, whether or not it is necessarily a dog house. Again, it also fits well with house. So I think that will definitely be in the back of my mind moving forward for Forrest Fenn box.
Excellent.
I like it.
All right. Let's get into a quick official Discord detective, and then we'll wrap this up. As promised, this will be a quick one. I've been sitting on this one for like 5 episodes now, and we've always been going long, so I'm just going to get it out of the way so I can get off of my to-do list. But this is a classic Discord. I think it's from December of 2024. And I don't know how I came across it, but it is from, I think, BetVR on Discord and the Calozars Discord. Let me get the exact quote if I still have it here, but it's about the Picasso art in the Picasso chapter, the quote-unquote AI-generated art that kind of has the doves and things like that. I'll pull it up in a second, but let me see if I have the exact message. It was short and sweet. Sorry for being ill-prepared. This is the message. It's from December 1st of 2024. Look at page 192. There's numbers in the mural. End of message. All right, so let's all have a quick look here. All right, so here's the Picasso art that shows the dove motif and kind of a Picasso style art. Remember that the doves were mentioned a couple of times in that chapter, and a dove mural. So BetVR4 says, look at page 192. There's numbers in the mural. You guys find any numbers? So
trying to change my perspective.
Yes.
Really?
So kind of 9 here.
Okay,
the 9 seemed most prominent for sure.
That seems most prominent to me, and then I kind of got stuck. I haven't really looked at this too long, I would say, but I'm in the boat that I see a 9.
I could buy into a couple zeros towards the bottom.
Okay.
Maybe an 8 up top.
So something like a 0 here.
Yeah, 0 in the yellow square to the left would be 0 maybe.
Okay.
And then maybe an 8 for that like top bookshelf up there.
Up here or... Oh, yeah. Okay, I
the
see.
blue on the outside.
Maybe a 6 here.
Yeah, I could buy that.
Anyway, I thought this was kind of a fun one because it's seeing eye, but I like your idea about maybe changing perspectives, Bryn.
Well, my initial reaction was to like look really, really close. Like, where are these tiny little numbers? But then I was like, well, I quickly realized I need to be looking at the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Ooh, I see a very prominent 192 in the bottom right hand corner.
Okay. That's a joke.
Oh my gosh.
That's a joke, everybody.
That took me 2 seconds, way too long. Oh no.
All right. So yeah.
I mean, even if it's maybe numbers, regardless, there's definitely some interesting things to be found, I think. And maybe these shapes. It kind of is reminiscent of the dancing figures, honestly, with all the different lines and angles.
As frustrating as the dancing figures, I would say, yes.
Yes.
Anyway, I think for dancing figures, the Art Smith chapter, I mean, that would be a little bit easier to, in my opinion, Photoshop in some clues just in those lines compared to having to manipulate this particular art style to make what you want it to make from an AI engine. Anyway, I thought it was kind of
especially because the Art Smith one, the jewelry is like scribbles, right? And this would be like, if you wanted to get those numbers we just talked about into that, you're basically drawing it from scratch at that point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
All right. As promised, that's a quick one. Just food for thought if you're getting bored and want something to do with their treasure inside, start looking at the numbers in the Picasso. All right. I think that's an episode. Any parting thoughts? Oh, I'm so sorry. Coincidence of the day. Cody, you have coincidence of the day.
I do, and this is also a quick and simple one. But when searching in my Indian Dream area, Western Wyoming, actually fairly close to that Grand Canyon of Yellowstone that I ended up coming up with, I think slightly south of that, there is a little lake called Riddle Lake. And there's a little, I want to say stream. I don't have it in front of me. It was a stream or a creek. I think it was a stream. A little stream coming off of Riddle Lake called Solution Stream. And it just felt also felt potentially a little JCB-ish. To where I did a little bit of poking around there in Google Maps because it felt like potentially very on the nose to just hide a box by Solution Stream right off of Riddle Lake. So I thought that was a funny little coincidence when looking at bodies of water to try and find treasure.
Have you guys watched the Matthew Hobbies episode on introduction to the book yet?
Not yet.
Okay, do that because he has another term. So you're calling it JCB-ish.
Yes,
he has a different.
I prefer
term.
to have a different term. Mine does not roll off the tongue.
Genreisms, but genreisms have a different meaning to Matthew Hobbies, and it's kind of the flowery language he uses. So the example he gave from the introduction, like a moth to a fiery flame. So he's been pulling out the genreisms he's found within the book, which I like that term.
Genreisms, that is good.
All right.
Well, we need to remind people to subscribe.
Oh my gosh. I've had that note for like 3 weeks in here. So I don't ask people to subscribe to the podcast because I think it's annoying, but we're going to do it for the third time of our history. Make sure you guys, if you're following the content and enjoy it, hit that subscribe button on YouTube.
Smash that subscribe button.
Just tap it. You don't have to smash it. But we're getting close to 2,000 subscribers, which is quite unbelievable. I feel like a lot of those 2,000 subscribers write to the mailbag, which is awesome, but it's a lot to get through. So hopefully during my vacation time this next couple of weeks, I'll be able to get back to a lot of folks in the mailbag. So apologies if you're waiting on a response. It's a lot of messages in there that I haven't gone through yet. So I'm working on it, and we'll get back to you within the next couple of weeks here. So anyway, hit subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll try to make a push to 2,000. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Searching for clues, let's find you.